Hello and welcome to another edition of Solving Standard. So this time I'm going to be playing Izzet Flash. So this is not what I would consider maybe one of the top 1 or 2 decks in the format, but I expect Mythic Championship VII, this is going to be a big deck. It is a way to kind of counter the Jeskai Fires deck because you have a lot of counter spells to try to keep cards like Fires off the battlefield. You can play at instant speed, and playing on your opponent's turn means that you have a lot of options. We've got our Flash creatures, of course, 4 Brineborn Cutthroats. So this is one of the cards, when you see it, you can inference that this is going to be a Flash deck. You want to be playing as many cards as you can to put as many counters on this as possible on your opponent's turn. And then the other Flash creature, Brazen Borrower. This is a new one out of Eldraine, and we see the petty theft part of it as a way to bounce something, but also just playing it as a 3/1 Flash Flyer is not too bad either. So in terms of our other threats, yes, we've also got one other Flash creature in the Spectral Sailor, so this is not quite as important as our other ones, but this is Jessica Estephan's list of Flash, and I respect kind of her prioritizing the other creatures a little bit more, but still finding room for one copy of Spectral Sailor, a card that we've seen more of in other lists. 3 Gadwick the Wizened, so this is a way to refill your hand. Once you have a lot of mana, it's even better because we can draw a bunch of cards. It gives the deck a late game, which is really important, and it just utilizes cards like Opt, cheap blue cards that you can play to also allow you to tap your opponent's creatures, or even other permanents if that happens to come up. It's any non-land permanent. When you do cast a blue spell, you can tap something. Then we also have our removal package. So Bonecrusher Giant is also a creature, so it's really nice to have multiple adventure cards, Bonecrusher being a removal spell and a creature threat, a couple copies of Shock to have something cheap, and then Ural's Outburst, which is a card that we hasn't seen a lot of constructed play up to this point, but it does fit well in this deck, kind of at the top of the curve, and able to deal 3 damage to something, and you can look at the top 2 cards, put one of them into your hand, so it is card advantage. We've got also, very importantly, need our counter spells. Ways to stop the big cards, the most important cards that the opponent has from entering the battlefield. So Ionize, Quench, and Negate. And then we've also got Opt to kind of smooth out the draws, some Temples, some Steam Vents, even a couple Castle Vantress as a way to utilize your mana later in games. We've got some additional counter magic in the sideboard, so a lot of this will be coming in against control decks or the Jeskai Fires deck. The Disdainful Strokes Negate, Mystical Dispute. Then we've got some additional removal spells for creatures, Lava Coil and Flame Sweep. Sorcerer's Spyglass. This may look a bit odd, but in fact, it's really good against the food decks that have cards like Witch's Oven, Cauldron Familiar, Planeswalkers, and then a couple of Planeswalkers of our own, just kind of good cards. The Royal Scions and Chandra Awakened Inferno to round out Jess's list. And this is the list that she is playing at Mythic Championship VII. She's writing an article about it, and I'm really excited to be able to pilot it here. So let's go ahead. We're going to jump on into some ladder play. And Jess is not the only one that submitted this deck for the Mythic Championship. There's multiple people who I have a lot of respect for that are telling me, hey, this Izzet deck has been going under the radar in a big way, and And I think that the time for this deck to shine is coming. Based on the results, based on what I'm seeing. So here we've only got half of our 2 colors. We've got only blue lands and no early action. We do have Gadwick, which is the only spell we can cast with the hand. This is the type of hand that I'm not super excited by. I think it's most likely a mulligan. If we changed the island to, say, a Temple of Epiphany, then I would be a lot happier keeping this one. But as is, our opponent also takes mulligan. Yeah, we're going to go ahead and mull this. Down to 6. But now I think we have to keep our 6, even though it's a 1-lander. We have multiple ops to try to find additional lands. So I think we're going to keep. We have to keep. We're already on 6. Going to keep this one. Then the question is, what do we get rid of? I kind of think it's just this Ionize. We want to get rid of something on the expensive side of things because our hand is full of, just islands and ops. So we know that with only a one land in our hand, we might not opt into lands immediately, or we might only have 2 lands, even 3 lands to work with. Ionize, not necessarily something that we need to prioritize. Now, we're seeing Temple of Epiphany on the other side. It's possible that it's a mirror match, and we have to respect that possibility. We want to just make sure this resolves to try to find the second land, and of course, anything there that's not a land, we just have to put on the bottom of our deck. Okay, so I was thinking it might be the mirror, but then we see Shimmer possibility. That's a pretty clear indication that the deck we are against right now is a Fires deck. Normally, Shimmer of Possibility is a card we see there, and it's possible even we don't see another color, we just see the blue and red lands, but I think that it's still most likely going to be a Fires deck that we're up against. So we want to get this Brineborn Cutthroat out immediately. Hope that there's no Bone Crusher Giants there. That would be a bit of a blowout. And the question is, do we want to opt now to try to find a land immediately, or just pass the turn? And that is actually kind of a tough decision, but I'm going to pass, because if we opt and miss a land, then we're not going to have Quench available, and we kind of want to just have this Quench. The question is, do we quench this or quench whatever our opponent plays off the Fires, which we could also do. Because we have the Brazen Borrower to bounce Fires if we need to, but I think we just quench the Fires itself. Did find a land, that's good news. Okay. So now we're kind of wishing we had that Ionize. Had we known the matchup, I might have put a different card on the bottom of our deck, but we didn't know what we were playing against. And without the Fires, I'm interested to see what our opponent's going to be able to muster up here. Because this Brineborn Cutthroat, rather, is actually a really, really good threat to have. I'm gonna go with the Bone Crusher Giant here, because we want to be able to cast 2 spells in case our opponent has their own Bone Crusher, which they do, so we can double spell here. And we don't want another Cutthroat. We're kind of all in on the Cutthroats that we have already in play. In fact, Next turn, we potentially just have lethal, so we're just going to pass the turn. 4 toughness means it's out of Definite Clarion range. Teferi would probably be the scariest card there, but our opponent's just going to pack it in. And that kind of shows the power of the deck. Now we get a bunch of additional counter spells after sideboard. So the matchup is really just getting better for us. We get to take out cards like Shock. Not in love with some of our other options. I kind of want the Bone Crusher Giants in case of our opponent having Legion Warboss. It can deal 2 damage to something. I'm going to take out the Spectral Sailor, kind of a flex slot in the deck. And then Rouse Outburst. There's actually not that many things you want to be dealing 3 damage to. So I think cutting down on Outburst is fine and just having our deck super counter heavy after board is where we want to be. Maybe we actually want this over the 3rd Outburst and just keep the Sailor in. Let's go with this. It's also tough to sideboard against our deck because you cannot only attack our creatures. Like, just boarding in a bunch of creature removal isn't necessarily going to work, because if we do Gadwick late in the game, we can just go over the top of our opponent. So this is a pretty decent hand. I think we're definitely going to keep it. We've got a counterspell and some pressure, which is kind of the 2 things we're looking for, and some lands. Probably want to just play a Fabled Passage turn 1. So we want to thin our deck. We don't want to be drawing more lands. We already have enough land almost for the rest of the game. So any draw step that's a land from here on out is not what we're looking for. So we're going to pass. We might have to quench. Depends on what our opponent plays. If they just pass now, I think it's kind of tough because they could have a Bone Crusher Giant. But if they don't, Brineborn is so good here that I think it's just correct to play it. And it trades with a Mystical Dispute, which is, I'm not going to say what we wanted, but it's not the worst. And we can now flash in this Brazen Borrower or play one of our counter spells. So our opponent's playing a Fires. I think we just use the Ionize here. That way we get to hold on to the Quench, which is the cheaper counterspell. And I think we want to just shock our opponent with the Bone Crusher, because there's a decent chance that we're just going to be forced to cast it next turn if we don't draw something. Okay, we drew Ionize. I think that's enough to change our plan. And just hold up Ionize. Don't need to Bone Crusher right away. But if our opponent passes, we can play out the Brazen Borrower. And now we have this freshly drawn Quench that our opponent is probably not going to expect. Now they might naturally be able to play around it because Quench is the counterspell that's going to get worse as the game progresses. Okay, they actually are playing around it. That's interesting. Okay, well, God Eternal Ketra is in. I'm actually going to go ahead and bounce it. So, by our opponent shocking with Hallowed Fountain, they were able to get around our Quench. Certainly we're hoping that our opponent does not have a Bone Crusher Giant. And right on schedule, right on cue. Now it's interesting they chose to get rid of the Brineborn instead of the Brazen Borrower there. I think that's a weird decision in my eyes. Because the Brazen Borrower is kind of now our only way to win. God Eternal Ketra is not a card you see. It's not a staple in this deck. We see Red Cavaliers normally, Kenrith, and of course the Cavalier of Gales, which we have seen this game. Not normally God Eternal Ketra. But haven't had a great opportunity to use this Quench. We could have quenched earlier just to tap our opponent's mana, but I don't think that would have been super productive. Could block here. So we take this. I mean, we should be able to have the block available to us next turn. I'm just not going to block. Okay. So we'll see what our opponent has. I guess now that if they just have a way to remove the blocker, they would win, which they do. If I blocked last turn, we wouldn't have the Bone Crusher. They would bounce the Brazen Borrower here, and then maybe if we'd still have to top deck a burn spell. So we'd still be in a bad spot, which is why I did not block. But it would have gave us maybe one top deck to get there. However, I think this Teferi was just right off the top. It happens. Their draw was better than ours that game. So that doesn't mean I think we want to change anything. I'm just going to resubmit. Just drew. Sometimes you just flood out with this deck. We also didn't draw any of our Castle Vantress. We didn't draw Castle Vantress. We didn't draw Gadwick. We didn't draw Spectral Sailor. So we couldn't really protect ourselves that well from that flood. This is pretty decent. Pretty good. Once again, we'll be using Op to kind of set up. I'm going to keep that island on top. The Brineborn Cutthroat is going to be... This is interesting because, once again, if we run it out there, there's always that possibility that it gets hit by a Bone Crusher Giant. If that happens, it's really bad news for us. So that's what I'm worried about. And that's why I'm not sure we run it out here, because it's just so bad for us if the Bone Crusher does hit it. I'm just going to draw this Ionize, and just draw my card for turn. This is kind of a more conservative line to the game. But I wanted to kind of see what we were going to draw before going forward. And it looks like they're still potentially holding up a Bone Crusher Giant. I think it's likely that that is the case. So we're just going to try to be careful. It means that we've kind of passed on the high upside turn 2 Brineborn Cutthroat. But now we can go Cutthroat end of turn plus negate. So being able to Cutthroat plus negate is kind of exactly where we want to be. So yeah, get to counter the giant, get a counter on our Cutthroat. And we're moving towards a good spot for Gadwick. We're very likely to Brineborn and Ionize this turn on our opponent's turn. And then most likely play Gadwick on the following turn. It's kind of just how this draw is going to play out. Yep. As expected. Just a really, really good sequence for us. Very happy with the lines. I think we just jam it. Jam Gadwick. The Wizened. Oh, it is nice. It is. So that's one. I mean, we see the Fires matchup. That is one of the matchups that I do like from the blue-red side. So we're gonna be on the play. I think we want to keep this hand. It doesn't have an immediate threat in it, but not knowing the matchup, I am going to play the Steam Vents tapped. Because we don't really know what we're opting towards. Like, we might want to land, we might want a threat. Now it feels like we kind of want a threat to opt towards. So Gadwick is a card I think we just have to keep. We don't have the mana for it yet, but we're slowly but surely making our way there. And Brineborn, also a great card to see. So even though we haven't really cast anything, our opponent also hasn't. And this is exactly how we want the game to be shaping up. I'm going to go Brineborn plus negate here. Looks like we are up against some type of food deck. And question here is, we can just play Gadwick. We can also pass. I think both options are very reasonable, but I'm going to play Gadwick. Because our opponent still doesn't have mana for something like a Casualties of War or Liliana, so just getting this down, they can maybe kill one of these, or play something that is stuck in their hand, but it just seems like the prime opportunity to get Gadwick down, but a little bit risky because it means that our counters are not available. So we lost the Brineborn basically because of that. I think that's okay though. And we're going to take any opportunity we have to quench something. We can Rouse Outburst the Goose if we want to. Or an incoming Murderous Rider if our opponent casts one. So I don't think we want to be quenching yet. Gonna outburst the Murderous Rider. And now we can actually Bone Crusher the Goose. Which I think makes sense. So yeah, perfect ideal spot to be in. We could double quench this. Kind of want to do that. Ionize also makes sense. Just gonna go for the double quench. Seems like the safest choice. Okay, so our opponent's on what looks to be Golgari food. We definitely want our 2 Sorcerer Spyglasses. I don't think this is a matchup where we are heavily sideboarding. Negate's an interesting card. Stroke is an interesting card. Both are interesting. I think on the draw we might rather have Stroke. But Negate also... So, they counter different things. Like, Stroke can counter a Wicked Wolf. Negate can counter a Trail of Crumbs. I'm going to cut the Shocks. The best thing they can do is kill a Gilded Goose. But if they're not killing a goose, they're just kind of not super important for us, I don't think. Lava Coil is another interesting card. Sometimes they will have Midnight Reapers, and exiling a Cauldron Familiar if you get the opportunity is good. So there's definitely some arguments to this. But it's not part of our primary game plan. I'm just going to submit this. We also just don't know that our opponent has Midnight Reapers in their list. Much better start here for our opponent. Remember last game they did not actually do much. They didn't really have a play until turn 4. That is not what the food deck is looking to be doing. This looks like a much more proactive draw. And already we are behind. The Brazen Borrower we can use. Just gonna let this duress resolve here. Our opponent's gonna get to take their pick, leaving us with these Ral's outbursts. I'm interested to see now if they attack with Paradise Druid, which they're going to do. We're gonna take this, and then end of turn we get to bounce the Druid. So that's gonna set our opponent back on mana for a little bit, which I think is important. And we're probably just going to want to go ahead and flash in this Brazen Borrower so that we have some sort of a clock. And a good rule of thumb is to play the cards, if you can, that your opponent already knows about. With our opponent knowing about the Fable Passage, just getting it out of our hand. We want as many unknowns in our hand as possible, really. And this is kind of a critical turn because, in a sense, the shields are down. We don't have a counterspell right now. And it is going to be a Midnight Reaper, which I kind of suspected might be in the deck, even though we didn't see it before. I'm going to go ahead and Ral's Outburst the Reaper. And even though they get to draw a card, we're essentially getting to draw a card here off of our Ral's Outburst. Going to grab this Brazen Borrower over the Steam Vents. So now we have access to a second Brazen Borrower. And lots of ups, which we have to try to find the time to cast those. If our opponent wants to trade 1 for 3 damage, I think we're okay with that. Okay, so now there's a trail of crumbs. I think that's fine. I mean, we could opt and try to find a counter, but I think I'd rather just opt and Brazen Borrower. Bouncing the food doesn't do anything because they can sack in response. So yeah, I'm just gonna use some of our ops and play this Brazen Borrower. They could have a Murderous Rider. Okay. That's fine. Unfortunately, did not draw anything great here. Off of those ops, so I think I'll just opt again. Actually, normally I want Spyglass, but with no oven right now, we're kind of just trying to kill them as quickly as possible and then get rid of it. Gadwick is good to stay on top. So we could take out the Paradise Druid. Constrain our opponent on mana a little bit. probably should have done this in a different order. Like I should have played the Scryland after the Rouse Outburst. So that was a missequence for me. I wasn't exactly sure what we were going to do, but now that we have the Gadwick, knowing that, we know that we can try to play a longer game. Whether it's going to work or not is... Like, I was thinking maybe we try to go face with the Rouse Outburst and just try to win before our opponent can set up. But now, Gadwick is an additional... If we played it next turn, it's an additional 4 cards. And so maybe we can just win by outcarding our opponent. I guess this was actually yeah, the Wicked Wolf is bad news for us. So is it a danger to killing the Paradise Druid as it opened us up to this play? So I think we just have to Gadwick now. Don't love this situation anymore. But that's 4 more spells to add to the grip. This is going to be a really interesting finish because our opponent has found Oven Familiar, Trail is kind of the combo. Like those are the 3 cards that allow the food deck to just kind of churn through the deck and do some pretty insane stuff. So we cannot really afford to block, I don't think, but that means we go to 7, which is a very vulnerable place to be. Now we could shock off Steam Vents, but that seems even more aggressive. I don't think we want to do that. So I'm just gonna pass. Try to set up potentially a lethal attack next turn. But our opponent gets to activate Trail here twice. And we have no counterspell. So we're going to play this before attacks, which allows us to tap down the Wicked Wolf. We can actually let this wolf come down. And we can bounce it. With the Brazen Borrower. I guess I want to play this Cutthroat first. I'm going to tap the Witch's Oven. And we may be able to... We may have lethal. We may have actually done it. Yep. And there's the concession. I did not necessarily think we were going to win that game. But we did out of nowhere, essentially. Right at the end there. With the Power of Gadwick the turn before. So those are kind of the two most popular decks right now. Fires and Food. And we made both the matchups look good for the Izzet deck. Alright, now this is not great. Just gonna have to mulligan it. Too many lands. Keep our 6. I think we bottom an island. Reasonable 6 Carter. Could be Mirror, could be Fires based on the Temple. Now, based on that play, I think it's more likely to be a Mirror. So we're just going to play our Castle Vantress and ship turn. I think we want to actually just let this resolve, and then we can Bone Crusher it, which is basically a 2-for-1. So I guess the Bone Crusher can get quenched if we play it. Alternatively, we just hold up our own counters. I think I prefer that. If they play a Brineborn or even an Opt, it's kind of tempting to quench it. I'm not going to. Because then they can like play a Gadwick or something, and it's just pretty annoying for us. So we're going to take this game slowly. This turn, I think we can go for the Bone Crusher. Playing around Quench. I guess they could maybe bounce this with a Brazen Borrower. I'm fine with trading off here. And just trying to get ourselves out of this flood. The best way to do that is going to be to figure out a way to resolve a Gadwick. I'm actually going to go for this Castle Vantress. I mean, we have a big mana advantage over our opponent, which is pretty nice. Don't want either of those. So we're digging for a Gadwick, essentially. But I like our situation. Our opponent's got so many cards in hand. Okay, those are both pretty good ones. Feels like we want the Brazen Borrower first. Seems fine for us. So, what to do now? Do we want to play our Gadwick? Probably gets ionized. Probably gets ionized. But then we can quench it back. So I think we just do this for 2. All right, I'll take the concession there. We want our mystical disputes for sure. Chandra is kind of a nice card because it can't be countered. So I think that is another card we want. The Royal Scions is definitely a high power card. The question is, what do we board out? Because there's nothing that's super bad in the matchup. Negate is a weird one, I would say. So is Quench. So is Spectral Sailor. I'm gonna shave a Sailor and a Quench. Brazen Borrower. I think we can cut on those. Keeping in 2 Negate, 2 Quench, 4 Ionize. I'm not positive that those are the right numbers. I think I'm gonna cut 1 Ionize. It's like little decisions as far as which counter spells you actually want here. Seems alright. So if they play a Spectral Sailor there, it would definitely be good for us. I mean, or a Brimeboard Cutthroat, rather. Well, it looks like it's going to be a back and forth, drawn out game. We're just going to be playing some draw go. Our hand is reasonably suited to that, and we have Chandra, which we could slam if we were inclined to do that. Don't really want Brazen Borrower, I don't think. Opt seems okay. Neither seem great. I'm gonna leave the Opt on top. I mean, if we did slam Chandra right here, things definitely get interesting. Don't think I'm going to yet. Start firing some of this, getting some of the cards out of our hand. Might as well go for this, I think. So they want to kill our Bone Crusher. We could try to fight that with a negate. But then they almost certainly have a counter back. Don't think Brineborn is what we're looking for. Kind of want to just make this game about Chandra now. Just try to win with this. And there it is. Don't think our opponent could really realistically beat it there. Got some sweet stuff there for fulfilling the quest. And a lot of those mirror matchups are very much about resource management and sequencing your spells. Chandra seems like a really nice addition to have for the mirror. Having some spell that can't be countered, like a Chandra or Niv Mizzet, seem very nice. Well, we're keeping, that's for sure. Can't maul this. Give us our red mana. So, I think we just want to shock. Although it means that we can't quench if we do shock. But seems like we just have to get that guy off the board. See what our opponent's follow-up is. If it's a big, like, Regisaur or something, if it's nothing, then we're very happy with our decision. We get to opt end of turn. Try to find some kind of threat, which Brazen Borrower, sure. And we want to be using this Quench sooner rather than later if we have the opportunity to. Which, pretty perfect opportunity here. Gate is actually a close one because there's not that many cards that the Rakdos deck plays that we want to negate. It is just a spell, which has some value, being it's a non-land card for us. I think I'm going to bottom it, though. The card we want the most is definitely Gadwick. I guess this is a spot where we can play Brazen Borrower, but then they can have a Murderous Rider. So from that perspective, we kind of wish we had taken the negate. But our opponent's also just not doing anything, which should be beneficial. Pretty obvious that they have a Murderous Rider here, which is why I've just been sitting here. Like, if they're not going to play anything, we don't have to either. I think that game is just going to benefit us. So now, 6 cards in hand for our opponents. We can go Brazen Borrower plus Ionize. I think that's what I'm gonna do. So we have the counterspell for the Rider. If they go for a Murderous Rider, if they go for some other removal spell, yeah, we still have to Ionize this, but they might have double Bone Crusher. Okay, so that's pretty bad for us. Especially since we've just been flooding, we need to find Gadwick. Even if we had Castle Vantress, it would be good. But our draws now, I mean, I guess I'm regretting playing that there, but didn't know exactly what our opponent had, of course. So I'm just gonna bounce and play this Brazen Borrower, but looks like we might just get beaten down by this Bone Crusher Giant. But as I was saying that, there's the card we've been looking for to put us in a much better spot. Just gonna jam it for 5 cards, including another Gadwick, and that was just insane. I mean, that was just massive. Can block because we have second Gadwick, so they are legendary. Might as well. Also, this Knight of the Ebon Legion isn't going to get counters this way. And we can really just set up the... I'm going to kill this. We can set up the second Gadwick to just be GG. Do we care about Spawn of Mayhem? Don't think so. Although we could just get rid of it here. Double Bone Crusher it. Yeah. Allows us to get in a nice clean attack. And we can just play out. We don't actually need the second Gadwick. Just do this the easy way. 4-3 beatdown. Okay, Lava Coil for sure. That's our best sideboard card in the matchup. easily. I don't think we want Flame Sweep. I'm going to take out the negates. We saw I scried one bottom there. They're kind of awkward sometimes. I'm going to take out the one Spectral Sailor just because it can't block particularly well. I think we would rather have the Royal Scions. And then got one Borrower. They're good at bouncing. Actually, I'm gonna cut an Ionize. Ionize is this is good at bouncing the Regisaurs, so I think we need them. Ionize is worse on the draw, anyways. I'm gonna keep this. The shocks tend to be good early in the game in case they have a knight or they have, you know, one of their 2 toughness creatures. But it appears they don't have one of those cards. And this hand is vulnerable to the big creatures. So the fact that they don't have the little creatures, that would actually be bad news for us. But there's a Blacklands Paragon, so we can just Bone Crusher that. Which I think I'm going to do that here. Don't want to take that hit because that could allow our opponent to play a Spawn of Mayhem, for instance. And I don't really want to cast this, I don't think. Because then our opponent could play like a Murderous Rite or untap, play something. Whereas if we pass, we have Shock plus Bone Crusher in case our opponent just hard casts a Spawn or plays a smaller creature. If they don't do anything, it's fine. Okay, Drill Bit is actually annoying, but I'm gonna just keep that Lava Coil, make them take one of these. So now that they chose to Drill Bit this turn, well, drawing Ionize does change things, because we might want to just pass with Ionize up. I think we do, because we're the better late game deck because we have Gadwicks in our deck, so we want to be passing in spots like this. We can Ionize the Spawn. We can also Bone Crusher plus Shock it. So those are really the only 2 options, and the question is which is better. I'm gonna go for the Ionize. Not sure if it was better though. Ionize, and then we get to play out this giant. This might die to something or other, but it's still kind of a 2-for-1 if it does. Plus the incidental damage that our opponent takes from the Murderous Rider. To get this Cutthroat in. So it's definitely a question if we want to respond or not to this. The problem is our opponent might have a Bone Crusher Giant of their own. I think I'm going to fire off our Bone Crusher here. Yeah, they do have their own Bone Crusher. So they're probably going to take the Lava Coil, leave us with Shock. But there's Gadwick. So we can just cast that here. Going to. don't want to risk it getting drill bitted or anything. It's just like a pretty close game where we Gadwick, and it's just kind of the perfect card to draw. Couple different options. But it feels like we just want to get rid of these creatures this turn. I'll take the temple. We actually want another land to be, because we have Gadwick number 2. Not sure about that land. I mean, lands are good, spells are good, everything's good for us, essentially. Alright, well, that was it. Clean 4-0. Honestly, this deck just feels great. I, of course, already submitted my deck for the Mythic Championship, which was Mythic Flash, not Izzet Flash, but now I'm kind of wishing, you know, that I had explored the Izzet deck more. Jess's list, can't say enough good things about it. I know that there's going to be an article coming out on TCGplayer where she's going to be talking about the deck, so definitely check that out for more in-depth information on it. And I think we're going to be seeing a lot of Flash decks moving forward, so watch out for them. Thanks for watching, everyone.